Are you there?
Yep, we're getting ready to get started here. Hey everybody, we are live. How are y'all doing? What is up, homies? This is the live, plain and simple podcast. Once again, we're gonna do this every Thursday. Well, we've been doing it every Thursday, and you guys keep watching. We're having a heck of a turnout. We're having a heck of a response. The podcast is growing, and it's going good. And man, every week it just gets stronger and stronger. Last week we had Rich Higgins on, and this week we're going to have Rich Higgins on again, and we're going to be talking about some cool stuff. You know, some of the podcasts before, we just kind of chilled out, talked a little bit about hunting, talked a little bit about life, and did pretty much whatever we wanted to do, and we're still going to do that, but this week is part 2 of what I'm calling the Higgins series. So everybody, let's give a hand for Rich Higgins. Rich, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, I'm doing just fan cotton picking tastic. It's a beautiful, beautiful day here, and coyotes are out in the back in the golf course.
You know,
can't ask for more.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. A guy just posted on Facebook a while ago and tagged me in it. The manager of a golf course in Florida is having horrible coyote problems, and you couldn't believe how many people are responding to that guy's post and saying the whole town and the whole county really pretty much is overrun with them. And you remember back, and you may remember it, you may not. You've about proofread, I think, every article I ever wrote for me. But you remember the article I wrote, and it was called, what the heck was it? I can't even remember now, but it had like some segments in it, like House Every Quarter, which was about, you know, hunting close proximities with houses and people. But you remember it said golf courses and coyotes or something. I can't remember what I called the segment, but you remember when I lived in Bolivar, I was literally right across the street from a golf course, and where there's golf courses, there's coyotes. I mean, that's just how
Absolutely.
It is. Yeah. So overlooked. And it's funny. I went to Texas and night hunted a couple years ago with some guys, and these guys had, you know, membership, and they were there doing their predator thing because they had such a coyote problem. They let these guys have the free run of the golf course, long as they didn't drive on the green. So we drove right up to the green and pushed a button, and I mean, stuff just come out of the woodworks everywhere. Dude, I loved it. I loved it. So I'm gonna get a hold of this golf course manager down in Florida and see what the real deal is, and see what kind of problems are going on down there. And I may take a trip to Florida and knock a gator out while I'm there, and go ahead and do some coyotes on some golf courses.
I hope that works out for you. But there are golf courses all over the Phoenix area, Sun City area. Sun City is overrun by coyotes because it's a relatively young community, and it's right there on the edge of the desert. Matter of fact, when they build it out in the desert. Now, of course, it's been absorbed by the city and extended out beyond it, but the coyotes are still there. And they use all the green areas, what the biologists refer to as green areas, that are interconnecting desert to different parts of the city. And so they're freeways, they're thoroughfares. And Joe Yarkin, who is the information officer for Arizona Game and Fish Department, said that there are more coyotes in the suburban and urban areas of Arizona than there are the desert. And that's because all of their needs are provided.
Yeah.
They have cover, they have water. Water and cover, of course, attract rodents and birds, which attract the coyotes. And that's why I said I hope that it works out for you, because I contacted the manager of the Sun City Country Club.
Yeah.
And asked him about the coyotes that were living on the golf course, because they sent a TV crew out there to video the coyotes, and they were right there in people's backyards up against the golf course, and they were laying out on the golf course underneath the Palo Verde and mesquite trees, and the golf carts were driving right by them. And I asked him if why in the world there were so many rabbits out on the golf course. Because you go out there in the evening, and honest to gosh, there would be more cottontails and jackrabbits out on that grass than you could count. I mean, it was literally, there would be hundreds of them. And all these coyotes out there, I asked him, why in the world they have so much? He said, that's why we welcomed the coyotes. We didn't try to discourage them. Says they have their babies here. They'll have them in the drainage pipes over here.
Yeah.
So they'll have them in little nests by the wall. They don't even bother with the dens. He said, and we encouraged it so that they could help control the numbers of these rabbits. He says, but they don't bother the rabbits.
Yeah.
He said there's so many doves out here that the doves will sit on the ground during the day in the shade, and the coyotes will walk right up to them, then make a final little dash and nail them. So if you walk around the edge of the golf course, it's just littered with dove feathers.
Yeah. I remember, and I do have a business proposition for you later we'll talk off air about, but, on your video you did, up close and personal, not tooting your horn, but I've said this in front of people. I've said it in front of literally 400 or 500 people at a time. You changed my life forever when you taught me a lot that I couldn't learn on my own. And that video taught me so much about coyotes. And talking about going up and coyotes having their needs fulfilled. I mean, you've got footage of coyotes with quail walking right between his front legs.
Oh yeah. Little cubbies of quail that follow along with him. And I don't have a clue why that is, but I've seen that many, many times. Coyote will come in kind of slowly to the call. Whole little cubby of quail, just little short, chubby legs, just pumping away, staying up with them.
Well, I was in Texas one time, and they have them big blue quail down there as well, and they have bob whites and other quail too. But I seen this cubby of quail, and they were like piranhas, just having heck on something in the middle of this trail. And of course, they scare off and run off, and do their thing. Blues would rather run than fly, so they just run away. And I get up there, and there's a fresh pile of scat in the trail with I'm not quite for sure if it was juniper berries or what, but the scat had some kind of berries in it, and them quail were absolutely like piranhas on that scat pile. So that's my theory. They follow around this coyote, wait for him to take a big old crap in the road, and then they eat it. That's what my theory is.
Well, that's a very good theory. It's a dandy. There may be some other reasons involved, but I'll buy that one. I do know that the coyote, when the coyotes moved through a cubby back in the brush, you can follow just like the coyotes down there in Missouri. We knew when they were coming in, that real heavy forest. A lot of the hunting that I was doing down there was in the Mark Twain. You could follow their progress from all the squirrels running across and the jays that would follow them and just cussing at them. You knew exactly where they were. And that's how the quail are too. If they'll come as they're approaching the call, if they'll come upon a covey of quail, the covey will part for them and just fuss at them.
Oh yeah, I tell you what, I don't get it sometime. Well, before we dive into the nitty gritty, I got a few subjects to touch base on with everybody. Once again, this podcast is brought to you by TacticalPredatorHunter.com for all your Dog Soldier approved gear. That is my one and only shameless plug, and I'll probably throw one at you, even though I say I'm not going to at the end of the show. But that's how I make my living, and I sell dang good calls, shooting sticks, everything I use on the show. And I say this every week, I have the show fine-tuned. I don't have to use crap. I don't have to BS anybody. I just go have a good time, and I'm effective. And all the tools that I use to be effective is on TacticalPredatorHunter.com. And also, Rich, another subject I want to talk to you about. Do you remember Chris Miller? And this is not a gossip segment on the podcast. This is me truly putting out my sincerity and my thoughts on this. Do you remember Chris Miller of Predator Talk?
No, I do not.
You remember the forum PredatorTalk.com?
Vaguely, there were so many of them, and in all honesty, I haven't visited any of them, including my own, in over 2 years.
Yep, I hear you. I haven't either. Well, anyway, Chris Miller is not a personal friend of mine, but online and I guess from the industry wise, as far as digital, I had a small relationship with the guy. We talked cordially and we were friendly to each other, and I guess you could say we were digital online friends, and he really tried to be part of the market. Well, he was a very giving guy. This guy went above and beyond, and I've researched a lot this week because it really hit home and it bothered me. But Chris Miller, I believe it was, let's see, this is Thursday. It was Tuesday morning. He took his own life. And, and I'm not trying to change the mood of the podcast, but I really got to get this off my chest. So I start really researching his Facebook page and what we call Facebook creeping. And the guy, he was married, he had kids. From the outside looking in, he had such a beautiful life. And I've known Chris for years, and I remember back in the Predator Talk days, he even told me one time that he fought inner demons, and I didn't pry and I didn't pick, and I remember just like everybody else, you probably just say, hey, you got to keep going, everything's cool, screw all these guys talking crap. I want to tell you guys, everybody, before we dig into this podcast with Rich, and I promise I'm not trying to change the mood, but there's been a lot of shift in the industry here lately, especially on the digital side. There's a lot of people starting pages. There's a lot of people starting digital TV shows, digital YouTube channels. And what happens is that creates a wave of competition, and some people can take it and some people can't. I love competition. All of us guys that are in the industry in a huge way and make a living doing it love competition, or we wouldn't have made it this far. But there's a lot of things that come along with competition. There's a lot of things that come along with being online and active online. And it's because it's so easy, and I'm guilty of it. I'm looking at you guys right now in the face. I'm guilty of this. I am guilty of telling people what I think. I am guilty of making impressions based on how someone acts behind a TV screen. But I'm telling you guys right now, this week and last week and the week before, so 3 people that I've known in my whole life have killed themselves in the last 3 weeks. And I'm telling you guys right now, it don't really matter what you think of somebody. If you don't know them truly from the inside out, or you ain't close to them at all, you can throw all this BS online. Everything you learn online about somebody, you can take it and throw it plumb out the window, because if you don't know someone personally, you don't know what they're fighting. And I'm telling you right now, it takes one thing to pull the plug on somebody. And I'm not giving Chris Miller a free get out of jail card, because I do think suicide is the wrong way out. Another guy I used to rope with killed himself last week, and he had some circumstances in his life that he was found guilty for, and instead of paying the price, he took his own life. He took the easy way out. So I'm not condoning that, but I do want you guys to know there's some people fighting inner demons, and I fight demons every day. We all do as human beings, and some of us can handle it, but some of us can't. So next time you start jumping on somebody's back and acting like a tough guy online, soak what I'm saying up right now. I don't know what happened to Chris Miller last week, but I know there was a certain situation and he couldn't handle it. With everything, this guy gives so much to the world, and he didn't even realize he was the person he was trying to be. He was a really good person. He gave a lot. Matter of fact, he gave an Aoudad hunt last week for Rich. You remember Mark Shirley, the guy that was predator hunting and got shot in the back by his wife?
Yes.
Okay, so Mark Shirley last week, they launched a GoFundMe page, and Tim Spike Davis put up a picture and was going to auction it off. Well, everybody jumped in and threw in calls and stuff, and I threw in a call. Well, Chris Miller owned huntaoudad.com, and he threw an Aoudad hunt in. And of course, I've always wanted to hunt Aoudad my whole life, and I think my bid was at $500 at that time. So I just said, you know what, I'm not letting this stuff go cheap. So I bid $1,500, and I got an Aoudad hunt and all kinds of good stuff. And you won't believe how many people this week said, "Oh man, well, I hope you still get your hunt." You know what? Screw the hunt. I don't know if he had partners. I don't know if he had business relationships with anybody else. I don't know anything. But I just know that that guy didn't realize that he was the person that he strived and worked so hard to be because of his inner demons. And something happened last week, and he took the easy way out. But you know what? It's over, and it can't be done. So next time you guys go to jump on somebody's back, and trust me, I've learned my lesson this week, because I have jumped on a lot of people's back, and we're all guilty of it. But you just never know. Now, if somebody says something stupid about, hey, I call in an 800, or, I seen a guy post a YouTube video this week, and I don't care if he gets mad if he's watching this. He claimed an 800-yard coyote kill with a scope he just started shooting 3 months ago. Well, this guy videos every time he takes a leak. If he'd have killed a coyote at 800 yards, we'd have seen it. So I don't, that's one thing, calling somebody out on BS. But when you call somebody out on their personal figure, you just never know what's going to happen. So I'm sorry for you guys. That's my Steve Kreiner part of the podcast. I hope I didn't change the mood. But I'm telling you right now, my life has been affected tremendously here lately about people knocking theirself off. I don't freaking get it, because I'm too big of a chicken poop to do it. I mean, I can't even grasp the fact, but this is my sincere, heartfelt, I don't even know what to say. I hope Chris's girls and his wife make it through this all right, and the rest of his family and all his close friends. So anyway, that's my soapbox for the night, Rich. I had to get that off my chest. I've been kind of wrecked the last few days about that. So
I can understand.
I
understand. Depression's an insidious, soul-crushing disease.
Yes, and
it affects everybody that's associated with that person, and I don't know enough about it to judge anyone for it. I just feel sorry for the people that are left in its wake, because they have a lot to contend with, and their lives will never be the same again. It may be a very, very long time before they're able to smile again.
A lot of people don't know, but until the last couple years of my life, I don't think I was obviously at the level of some people or whatever, but depression is, I've known depression, and I do not like it. I know what it's capable of doing, and I'll be honest with you, I make holsters, and I'm always trying to keep my hands busy, because the business is the hunting business and industry is monotonous to a point, and we're always trying to do things to stay on top, and it's a hustle. And I was talking to my partner this morning about it. I was like, we're getting ready to merge production companies and take the production of another show over, so we're going to start really working on production a lot for other shows as well. And if I'm driving down the road, I'm thinking, and I don't like it, because I'm my worst enemy when it comes to my head. I've been trying not to cuss on the podcast as much, but you guys know what I'm getting ready to say. I head F myself a lot. Sometimes people's heads are just, depression sucks. And I have a brother of mine that is very close to me right now, fighting post-traumatic stress disorder and clinically severe depression and alcoholism. And, I quit drinking a couple years ago, but just right after I quit drinking, I was talking to John about his alcoholism, and I told him, I said, well, I'm not going to drink no more if you don't. And of course, he made the promise to me, and he didn't keep it. But you know what? He's working real hard now to make it right, and that's a bad deal. You just never know what, you never know what kind of, I know a guy just 2 weeks ago was triggered because he walked into a saloon, and not making excuses because he shouldn't have been there, but a guy walked up to him and started mouthing him about how he had acted before and said they didn't want no trouble. They should have just left him the hell alone. They don't really know what got people fight, and it just, God, it's horrible. Okay, we got to quit or I'm going to start crying. Jesus. I'm a crier, damn it, and gosh dang, sheesh, man.
Well, the eyes are the windows of the soul. You're a good man, Steve.
Well, Dad, gummit, I try to be a good guy. There's a lot of people that think I'm a chicken butt, and there's a lot of people that think I screw you.
Well, you are.
Yeah, you know how it is. I mean, it's just such a freaking mess, you know, and gosh dang. You know what I started doing on a conversation level today, Rich? I started smoking a pipe. And my disclaimer is I'm not condoning smoking a pipe if you're under 21. But I don't inhale, obviously, because smoking pipes you don't inhale. But it's very relaxing. I enjoyed it.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
And there's so many different flavorful aromas that and you know, you've heard of aromatherapy.
Yep.
Man, you find an aroma that soothes your soul, and it's life changing.
I set my
Smoke that pipe, Steve.
And I'm in Wyoming, so I'm not smoking that stuff they smoke in Jason Stearman's side of the line. You know, he's in Colorado. But I sat down on the porch and I set my phone. This was like 6:30 or something. I thought, okay, I got to go make sure my camera equipment's working and my audio sounds good, and I got to make sure. So I set my alarm so I could settle in and smoke this pipe, and it was like 30 minutes or so. And it just went by. Like I sat in the front of my house in the shade. I tried in the back, but the sun was shining, and it's 96 here today. But anyway, I got in the shade, and I watched a YouTube video, of course, just like everybody else, and I learned how to smoke this pipe. And it took me a few tries, but I got it lit good, and then I broke the ash and made my scab, and then I got it lit really good. And of course, Emily come out and gave me her 2 bits, and then it probably smoked a lot better. And holy crap! I was just sitting there looking at nothing, just watching cars drive by and smoking a pipe, like my grandpa used to, and it was I enjoyed it.
You got the sole leather patches on the elbows of all your jackets now.
Yeah. You know, I text a couple of my buddies and I sent them a picture of me smoking this pipe, and they're like, you need to get on your Cirrus Windicator and start puffing on it. You know, vaping's the big thing.
Well, with your pipe, you know which way that wind is going.
Yeah, that's right. So now that we're talking about pipes and we're talking about aromatherapy, there's so much. I've had so many people calling me this week, and I've had so many people want to request, ask Rich this and ask this. So we're going to have several weeks probably with you. But I think I want to start. I was going to start with off-the-wall tactics, because me and you think really on the same borderline when it comes to off-the-wall tactics, how to kill a damn coyote. I wrote an article one time that said, give them the runway, and people's like, what the hell's a runway? Well, if the wind's blowing to my left down a drainage ditch, maybe I should set up where I give him a little bit of motivation to get downwind of me, and I'm going to shoot his butt off before he hits it, But Scott Hampton called me yesterday, and he told me, he's like, you got to quit podcasting. And I'm like, why? He goes, you got to quit. And I was like, why? And he goes, because you'll never top the podcast from last week. So I wanted to tell you that, Rich, that Scott Hampton called me, and Randy Shaw called me and said the same thing. You just set the par. You just set how they all should be. And,
Randy and Scott, honestly?
Yeah, Scott called me, yep.
Those guys are giants in my mind.
Yep.
They're just, someday when I grow up, I want to be just like those 2 guys.
Randy Shaw, he texted me and he said, you set the par right there. That's the way to do it, and that's, what people are wanting. And then Hampton, he called me and he's like, you got to quit podcasting. And I'm like, why? And when he said that, I was just like, you know what? I got some news for you. Next Thursday's going to be even better. So we're going to dive right off into this. And everybody, you wouldn't believe how many people sent me messages. Hey, can you interact more with the chat room on these with Rich and yada? I really want to interact with the chat room, and I will interact with them. But I'm going to I had requests for people wanting to call in and talk to you about certain questions. And we might do that in the weeks to come. But right now, we're going to dive into the coyote's nose tonight. And we're going to learn a lot of stuff. And, like Scott Hampton said, I want to know how misting works today compared to 5 years ago or 10 years ago. So I'm going to ask you some questions. We're just going to roll with it, and we're going to get this party started. How about that?
That's a deal. This is your dance. You lead.
Well, gosh dang it, I'm kind of humbled that you're on it with me. I remember, holy crap, has this gone somewhere or what? You remember 10 or 11, 12 years ago? Can you remember? I just
like
can't.
Yesterday.
I know.
Literally.
And I was toting a GL2 around, falling off cliffs and shooting tails off coyotes. And I wanted this so bad, and it was an accident how it happened. And I remember calling you and saying, Rich, if I call my show or my DVD Calling the Dogs, and I've still got all the DVDs with the files on it, the CDs, of course I ain't got a damn computer with a CD drive, so I can't watch them, but I remember calling you and saying, if I call my DVD Calling the Dogs, are you all going to make fun of me for calling a coyote a dog? And you supported me on that. And I, but now I still wear my heart on my sleeve a little bit, and I still do my thing. I don't use scent elimination like I used to use it. I used to everything was drenched down and yada, 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 but I still use it. So what we're going to do tonight, and what me and you agree on, and our theories line up, because I learned everything about the coyote's nose from you, because there's no possible way to learn what you know unless you put in the time and study it. I remember one time you said, Kreiner, how long you been studying coyotes? And I said, well, I've been hanging out and listening to you and trying to apply your tactics for 4 or 5 years. And you're like, okay, you got a master's. And so there's things that you know about a coyote's nose that you cannot learn in the field. I mean, you can learn how...
Hold on. Let me interrupt real fast,
yeah.
Because I know and I understand that it's not just me and you. I'm not just talking to my friend and enjoying an evening with you. That you have listeners.
Yeah.
And I do not want any of the listeners to think that because you and I have been associating or you've been listening to me for 5 years that you now have a master's because of that. That was not what I implied.
Okay.
I do not. It may have been what you inferred. It was not what I implied.
Well, yeah.
I was implying, what we were talking about, I remember it well. What we were talking about is people claiming certain numbers of years of experience as validation for their proficiency, I guess you could say it.
Yeah.
And they say, I've got 20 years of it, of calling, and the next DVD that they put out a year later, they now have 30 years because apparently more years means more experience. And,
I remember that well.
And better. Yeah. Well, the plain and simple of it, what I was telling you is that if they've done the same thing every year for 20 years, which a remarkable number of coyote callers do, they don't really have 20 years experience. They have 1 year's experience 20 times. It's whenever they build on each and every year, they expand their base, they expand their horizons. They study the coyote. They try to learn the behavior of this animal, and they adapt, because the coyote is the most adaptable animal on the planet, and they try to adapt with the coyote. And each and every year they expand on it, and just like advanced education, higher education, you get out of high school and you go to college. 4 years later, you've got a bachelor's in science degree.
Yeah.
If you stay another 2 years and 6 years, you have a master's.
Yeah.
If you stay for 8 years and build on it, you've got a doctorate. And that is true of coyote calling. I'm absolutely convinced of this. But you have to expand and adapt with the coyote. You have to learn and broaden your horizons. You cannot do the same thing year after year after year, because then number of years in experience, are meaningless.
I remember.
And that's what I was simply telling to you.
Yeah.
It's because I know what you have been doing. I know it's a compulsion to you. You have such a wonderful passion for this sport, this terrific little animal, and you build on it. And you're a sponge. You ask questions of everybody. I do. Uh, it's strange to hear me say this because I give so many seminars and I'm talking so much here, but I've never learned anything with my mouth open. I learn with
Yes.
by listening.
Yep.
And so I ask questions of everybody and I listen to everybody because even the most rank amateur has seen things that I have not seen.
Yep.
They have experienced things I haven't experienced. I can learn from anyone and everyone. And so I try to keep my ears open as much as possible and learn. And I truly, truly respect you, Steve, because of your ability to learn from every situation and your burning desire to learn as much as you possibly can.
Well,
but that's what the master's comment was about. It was about you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I remember. I think when you realize how I really wanted this game and how bad I wanted it, when I was filming Calling the Dogs, I logged, and I've looked for my notebooks. Back then we all, most of us carried logbooks and tried to figure out life and yada yada yada. And I logged over 200 days in 1 year, and I know you remember this well because I was hunting all year long and I was pissing a lot of people off. But I logged over 200 just right a little over 200 days in 1 year, and I killed 18 coyotes on video in 200 days, and I think I called in 76, and them numbers are not very good, and I'll admit it. But I think when people like the sin elimination thing we're getting ready to talk, I think when people sit back and go offline just a little bit and start listening to a real person, things change. I use Scent Killer Gold right now, and I've used several different brands throughout my career. But, I don't like smelling like Tide. I like smelling like nothing because I have enough going on that the coyote's going to smell anyway. So what I want to start talking about right here is I just want to explain the coyote to these people in their nose, because we don't have to talk about a brand of sin elimination. We don't have to talk about a certain tactic or anything. But if people sit down and absorb what you're getting ready to say about the coyote's nose, they're going to understand that certain tactics work. Are we hiding from a coyote? No, we're not hiding from a coyote. Are we eliminating scent? Yes, we're eliminating scent up to a certain percentage, but obviously everything is dictated by pressure and other elements. So I guess the first question, I've seen a lot of people say, well, don't coyotes have a nose as strong as a whitetail? That's where I want to start, because I think whitetails are stupid. So here's where we're going to start. Rich, tell me about the olfactory glands. Tell me about I'm going to call them olfactory glands because I don't know what they're really called.
It's not a gland.
Okay.
It's not a gland.
Okay.
It's an olfactory process.
Okay, olfactory.
System.
I made up a word last week.
The coyote olfactory system.
Yeah, I made up a word last week called epicicity, because I see people.
I know it. I like that.
Well, I mean, you say dog farts on TV enough, everybody starts saying dog farts. So now I'm going to say epicicity. I used to say badassery, so before long I'm going to be like, I'm Steve Kreiner, the dog soldier, and I'm a douchebag. Copy that one, come on. Okay.
And you'll never hear from Mary Poppins.
That's right. So, okay, Rich, so compared to a whitetail, the olfactory system, process, whatever, so compared to a whitetail, explain to me the coyote's nose compared to a whitetail, and then we'll start talking about processing.
Okay, it's easier to understand certain things, concepts, if you have a basis for comparison, frame of reference. And you can go up a wrong path doing that because people have a tendency to compare coyotes' behaviors to humans. And that's called anthropomorphism. It's you're attributing human qualities and behavior to this animal. It's not a human. It's an animal, and there's not even a consensus that they're capable of cognitive reason. I personally believe it. There are good biologists that don't. There are a lot of biologists that are absolutely convinced that they are capable of it. But by comparing them to things that we know and understand, it helps us to get a better handle on this. And as far as whitetails are concerned, I don't know what their capabilities are. I don't know.
They're stupid.
There's no conscious reasoning in this olfactory system in coyotes or whitetails. So it doesn't matter if they're stupid or not, because their reactions are instinctual, that are generated from interpretation and perception and the concepts involved there. And that's all gobbledygook right now. So if we examine the anatomy and the physiology of the olfactory system, then we can start to get a better handle on it. We have to know and understand that before we get into the second half, because the olfactory system is comprised of two components. The anatomy and physiology determine the detection. So the first component is detection, the second, which occurs in the rostrum, and the second component is analysis, and that occurs in the brain. Now, analysis is also comprised of two components, and that's interpretation and perception, which we'll get a little technical on that. The basic requirements for perception apply. There are two basic requirements that apply. And first, there must be a sensory signal to the brain, and an interpretation of that signal must occur. And then a perception is then made based upon concepts, which is why, and my goodness, the concepts are legion. And the most commonly used adjectives to describe the nature and behavior of coyotes by biologists is varied, adaptable, and complex. It's just the most remarkable animal in the world. It's the most vocal mammal in the North American continent. A book that was written by a past director of Wildlife Services is entitled Coyote, Survivor and Predator. Survivor being a key word from a man who dedicated his life to the eradication of coyotes. And enormous respect and even probably a little affection for the coyote. It's just hard. Once you learn what motivates these coyotes and what their true nature is, it's just hard not to appreciate them.
Yeah.
Anyway, to understand the system, you have to understand the anatomy first of all, and then the physiology. So we'll discuss the anatomy, all of the parts and the actors and the players, and then we'll tie them all together, how the coyote uses them with the physiology of the process. But as far as the anatomy is concerned, it's God made the coyote as he is, and he just did a dandy job, because this olfactory system is a miracle. It's comprised of two components: detection and analysis, like you said. And detection first occurs in the rostrum, which is the snout.
Yeah.
And analysis takes place in the brain. And you have to understand how each are complete and opposite components, but they function together. And we'll start by at the very tip of the end of the anterior end of the coyote. That little black pad up front is called the rhinarium, and that's the nose pad. And it's located at the interior end of the rostrum, which is what the snout is. Yeah. And the outside of the rhinarium contains teardrop-shaped openings called nares. Those are the nostrils. And these transition into slots that extend down and rearward. Now, all of this is very important.
Yep.
The inside of the nares contains a flap called the alar fold that can close off the nostril. Now, the nares open into the nasal cavity, which is divided into two halves, so you're contending with two separate entities, twins, and they're divided by a bone and cartilage in a structure called the nasal septum, which runs longitudinally through the rostrum. Now, these cavities contain the ethmoturbinate bones, which form a scroll-like structure of porous bone and a movable cartilage. It contains the paranasal sinuses, and at the posterior wall, the subethmoidal shelf, which is another porous bony structure. All of these structures are covered with a mucous membrane called epithelial mucosa. I'm using scientific terms. Don't get annoyed by this. A lot of people do. But you know and understand that what you're learning, what I'm trying to show you or teach you, is has a basis in science. It's not a personal opinion. This membrane is also called epithelium. It contains as many as 250 million olfactory receptor cells. 250 million.
Let me stop. Let me interrupt just a second. Is that bigger than the number that we used to talk about 10 years ago? I mean, have they found? Okay,
no.
Okay.
Because these studies by the biologists date back before 1972, which is the heyday of biological research on the coyote. We'll go off on a tangent right here. In 1972, President Nixon signed an executive order banning the use of what was that? That very effective poison that had so many ill effects. It had
Agent Orange.
It would kill all of the. No. No, that was used in Vietnam to President Defoilant. This, it was banned in '72, so I can't even remember. But it was the most effective poison for coyote control. Only wolves I almost had it. It'll come to me here in a few minutes. But anyway, banned the use of it. And the Western ranchers, which had some very effective lobbyists, just threw a fit. Because it was, like I say, it was the only effective countermeasure for coyotes. And so their senators and representatives passed through legislation that appropriated a huge amount of money for predator control research. And boy, they just gave grants to all these biologists in the western states. Yeah. And from 1972 on, there was just some marvelous papers being published, doctoral dissertations, master's theses, other doctorate candidates that need to get published. They have a specific number of requirements for publishing. And so they had lots and lots of money. So you had Franz Commonson doing these long studies on the National Elk Reserve up in Wyoming. Dr. Robert Crabtree did a 14-year study on Yellowstone, and also on the ALE up at Hanford, Washington. And so much was learned on them. So what you're going to be hearing and what we're going to be talking about is nothing really recent, because we're talking about the physical anatomy of coyotes, which haven't changed in probably 15,000 years. Yeah. The first coyote skeleton ever found was dated back 15,000 years, and strangely enough, it was found in a cave in Maryland. Anyway, we went off on a tangent there. We're talking about 250 million olfactory receptor cells.
Yes.
Well, these all 250 million of these receptor cells are located in clumps on the knobs of cilial cells, which are little hair-like cells. And with the clumps on top of them, they look like little sprouts of broccoli. Yeah. So that they're like white. And those cilia are connected to tiny nerves called dendrites, which connect to larger nerves, which are called axons, which form into even larger olfactory nerves, which extend through the ethmoid into the olfactory bulb or olfactory lobe, and then on into to the frontal cortex. The olfactory lobe is on the brain side of the ethmoid, which is the separation between the rostrum and the brain. And then from the frontal cortex, the signals then go out to like the limbic system, which is a primitive system in the brain which regulates or at least is concerned with memories and emotions and behaviors, and all of the cortex, which are the outer parts of the brain, especially the frontal cortex, which are control conscious thought. And all of this we'll get into in the second half of this. But for right now, 250 million olfactory receptors, and they all wind up back in the frontal cortex for recognition and separation. And in addition, there's what's called the Jacob's organ, which is located in the nasal cavity, and then that opens into the roof of the mouth between the canine teeth. And everyone who has coyote skulls, check out the roof of the mouth, and you'll see up there in the front of between the canine teeth two little holes, little foramens, and the two of them together close. They look exactly like a deer hoof, a deer track. And this organ is a separate but parallel system of olfactory detection. This one primarily detects pheromones and adrenaline, chemicals that don't have a typical scent to them. And so it's separate and parallel to the regular olfactory system, and their nerves communicate with the olfactory bulb, or rather than the olfactory bulb of the cortex like the scent system does, but with the hypothalamus, which regulates sexual and social issues. So this is the one that picks up those mating scents and things. And it's not just a coyote that has them. You're a horseman. You know that when one of your studs picks up a little scent of a lady that's in heat, first thing they do, it's called a phlegmon reaction. They curl that lip back, and what that does is opens up that Jacobson organ so that they can analyze the pheromones and the sexual sense. So
I do the lip curl around the house sometime.
I believe that.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I want a selfie. I want you to post that on your slam.
Okay, go ahead.
But
I'm sorry.
Anyway, that's a very complex system, and that's basically all of the players involved. That's the anatomy of this system. Now, by comparison, the all canines have this system, but the little flat-nosed dogs, like the bulldogs and pugs and such, they have as few as 40 million olfactory receptors, which is still better than 6 million that a human has. But all of your drug interdiction dogs, the bomb-sniffing dogs, all the scent discriminating canines that the military and the government uses, they generally have about 225 million because they use like German Shepherds and Labs and such.
And I want to interrupt you just for a second there, Rich.
Sure.
So like you say the dog has that dog has a 220 million olfactory things, and a coyote
receptors.
A coyote has 250 million receptors. I just Googled it, and of course every whitetail page or every deer scent elimination company says that a whitetail has 297 million olfactory receptors.
297? Okay, by comparison, the bloodhound, which supposedly has the best nose in the business, has 300 million. So the
Okay.
whitetail's right up there with the bloodhound.
Yeah.
So his powers of detection are just unparalleled. They're just amazing. The bear, which the Native Americans thought had the best nose going, you've heard that old saw, attributed to some Indian, and it's saying just that a leaf fell in the forest, the eagle saw it, the deer heard it, the bear smelled it.
Yep.
And then, of course, on all the coyote forums, everybody will chime in saying the coyote did all three, which is a tribute to all of their sensory systems. Sight, scent, sound, and sight, scent, sound, and smell.
I like a coyote's eyes, but as a 20+ year coyote hunter now, because I did break the 20-year mark because I killed my first predator when I was 16, and I'm now 38, so I did break that mark a couple years ago. I don't give the coyote any credit for his eyes, and I should, but you hunt them so long, you just figure out you figure when they're coming to the call, you figure how to move with them, and that's the easiest part of it. I don't even wear camo anymore hardly. I wear t-shirts and ball caps, and but I move with the coyote. But I understand people giving tribute to the coyote's sights and ears and smells, but the nose.
Well, there's a reason for that, because it's just as complex as the sensory system, or the olfactory system. There are lots of studies done just on canine eyesight, including coyotes. And it's a good thing to learn, especially their color discrimination.
Yes.
Because a coyote's a deuteranope. It's red-green colorblind, which means it does see in colors. It does not see red as gray. It doesn't see just in shades of gray, like we all learned years ago.
Yeah.
They see a lot of different colors in the blue spectrum, and so green appears yellow to them. White appears as a shade of yellow. Red appears as a shade of yellow to them. So you can drive a red truck out and park it in front of a green hedge, and it'll blend very, very nicely.
Yeah.
And contrast is one of the 5 attributes that a coyote has developed for survival. The first is movement.
Yeah.
Second is contrast, and then what is it, reflectivity, and then shape, and then color. And so color is very, very important to them, but most important is movement.
I've severely.
We're off into the eyes now.
I was just I was going to say I'm very good at my ADD sidetracking us. So anyway, back to the nose. So
we can do eyes another time.
Yeah, right. Yeah, okay. We'll do eyes some other time. Okay, so anyway, back to the nose.
Anyway, we're talking about the 250 million and comparing it to other animals like the whitetail. You see 297 million. Man, their snout just doesn't look that long and that wide, which is what gives the greyhound an edge up over the others, because it's a long-snouted canine, but it also has a wide rostrum, which gives it the ability to has more storage area for the epithelium and all the scent receptors.
I'm going to do more research on the whitetail's nose, because that's a little vendetta I got, because my producer's a big whitetail guy, and being in the industry, I have to whitetail guys. My animal's more badass than your animal, and I deal with that a lot. And I tell everybody, deer are stupid, but whatever.
Well, that's we're talking about detection.
Yes.
Right now, and 200 million or 300 million, I do not see it making any difference, because detection is a done deal. It's going to happen, because these 250 million receptors, just like the polar bear, it has 250 million scent receptors.
Yes.
And they National Geographic had a special on the polar bears and the hunting techniques for seals. They walk crosswind downwind from where they suspect the seal's air holes are, and they walk crosswind until they cross the current of one. They can detect a seal's breath from 3 miles away. A seal's breath.
Sheesh. When
it comes up to the air hole and exhales. That's what 250 million scent receptors are capable of. What? So what this whole anatomy and physiology thing here, since we're bouncing back and forth, and we're not presenting this in a linear fashion, we'll just say, trust me, you hear online all the time, can't fool a coyote's nose, fool a coyote's nose. Don't buy scent lock, don't buy scent suppression products, because they don't work. You can't fool a coyote's nose. Well, here's the plain and simple of it. Detection is a done deal. It's going to happen. But that's the first component. That's the detection component. We now have the analysis, perception, and interpretation that occurs in the brain that we can screw with, that we can influence, and we can defeat it. And next week when we get into this and into the concepts, we'll explain how. And but for now, let's see, we got through the anatomy. Let's tie it all together and show how it works.
Yeah.
And that's in the facility. Now, to detect a scent, the coyotes use a sniffing process, which is a series of very rapid short inhalations and exhalations. And there's some velocity to these. That rhinarium up at the very front is mobile. They can point in any direction that they need to examine. And the nares change size and shape to create either to accommodate greater airflow or to restrict the entrance of sand, dust, debris, particulates of any kind. And then inspired air is forced into the nasal cavity, then through those turbinates, the scroll-like bones, porous bones, and those warm and humidify the air, which makes it more amenable to detection. And the mucous membrane, the mucosal epithelium, covers everything, and it's within the rostrum, and it filters bacteria and particulates. It traps and dissolves scent molecules, and after dissolving them, it passes them over the scent receptor cells.
Yeah.
As this warmed and humidified air continues through the ethmoidal shelf, which is that porous bony structure, it's forced into the olfactory epithelium in the shelf's nasal pocket. And that's where the scent molecules that are not recognized in a single sniff accumulate. And this prevents them from washout, prevents those scent molecules from being washed out during the aspiration of the air. And that way they can collect enough for recognition. And during aspiration, as the air is forced out, the alar fold closes, up there behind the nares, and forces the air down and back through the slots on each side of that, so that the air doesn't interfere with the scent molecules that are still in there or on the ground in front of the coyote. How cool is that? That's how you would design it. As the process is repeated through the sniffing process, those hair-like cilia cells move the mucus containing the scent molecules across the olfactory receptors, and they continue this until they generate nerve impulses, then transmitted to the olfactory lobe and then into the frontal cortex, all this for analysis.
Yeah.
Anyway, this system involves dissolves scent molecules, moves them across the 250 million scent receptors. I'm going to break this down into a couple sentences for you, everything that we just talked about. After dissolving the scent molecules in the mucosa, it moves them over those scent receptors that are clumped on the top of the cilia. The cilia wave like seaweed in the in the water,
Yeah.
and it moves all these over them, and the mucosa covers everything inside the rostrum, including the sinus cavities. Everything is covered with those, and to see it move all those scent molecules across all those until an electric signal can be fired off into the different parts of the brain for analysis. This thing is so efficient that that coyote's nose can detect salt molecules in parts per trillion. Do you know how much a trillion is?
Yes, I do. Let's see.
Do you honestly?
A trillion.
Because I don't have a clue. It's not even a number to me. It's just a word.
A trillion is 1,000 billion, I think, or 100. Let's see.
No, you got two words now because I can't associate with either one of them. I don't know what a trillion is.
Well, anyway, it's a damn lot.
I do know that. I know the closest thing that I could find that I could associate with is that if you lay 1 trillion pennies out on the ground, it would cover an area 10 miles by 14 miles. Wow. It's 140 square miles of pennies, and
that makes my head
and
hurt.
A coyote. Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And ostensibly, a coyote could detect 1 penny out of all of that. So anyway, detection's a done deal. It's going to happen, plain and simple.
Yeah.
And but fortunately, it's only half of the equation. And, analysis the other half.
Yeah. That's the thing. And I really want to. I'm going to give you 30 more minutes this week. That's what I really want to talk about as well. Is, I know, and I'm sponsored. I have a company that I've worked with for 6 years now, and they're a great scent elimination company. They fool whitetails every year. I mean, it's consistent, and there's a reason this stuff. Everybody says scent elimination, Rich, sucks, and everybody says it's a faux pas, and everybody says it's a scam. Why has I can get online and say Halle Berry went home with my neighbor Rod yesterday, and you can go to Snoops and find out if it's true or not. So if there wasn't some kind of science behind scent elimination, it would already be debunked. There's millions and millions and millions of dollars in the market spent on scent elimination. It's because people have success using it. So now, are we close enough that I got us derailed enough? We're going to go into processing, right?
We are, but this is going to take quite a. Well, you know what? We can do it in a couple parts. We can.
Okay.
When it's time for you to cut me off, just go ahead and do it. We'll pick up at that juncture next week and continue on.
Well, we're gonna go for another 30 minutes. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can either talk about eyes or we can talk about analysis.
I want to talk about analysis because I don't give enough credit to the Coyote's eyes, and we're going to talk about Coyote's eyes in the upcoming weeks for everybody listening. But I've seen, and I'm not bragging. I swear to gosh, I ain't bragging. But I've seen so many coyotes every year. I killed 60 some on video last year, which is not big numbers. It's great numbers videoing and doing this for a living. But I've seen probably 100 coyotes come to the call last year. I probably killed 60% or whatever. But
that's good. That's excellent with that.
It is. I'm happy with that. So what I want to go into analysis because that's the important part of me, and the reason why it's important to me is because year after year I use scent elimination because I'm the only one in the market with enough balls to talk about it in seminars. I don't just take these people's check. I believe in it. Now, do I use it every time? No, I don't. It's just that's the fact. I don't. But I promise you, if I'm going into an area shot up or if I'm really focused and I'm really wanting to do some crazy crap, I use the stuff. And I know several other people that use it that are afraid to say it online. I'm not afraid of nothing. I'm fearless. It says right here on my arm. Wait, yeah, that arm. So, dude, you haven't seen me in person since I got all my tattoos.
Oh, okay.
I'm sleeved, Rich.
What is that, a W on each cheek of your butt?
No, seriously, I got sleeves. I'm like, I got more tattoos on me than hairs on a coyote. But anyway, so I just we got to talk about analysis, and I'm just going to shut up for a minute. And a lot of people are watching this podcast live on Facebook, and they see me, and I'm soaking all this up because they don't understand what kind of opportunity that I've got right here. So I'm soaking it all up, and I look like I'm bored, maybe even tired, and I'm eating Skittles and stuff. But I really dig this crap. And so, okay, so let's talk about the analysis, the process of analysis. When these coyotes smell me, because they're going to smell me, let's talk about how they process it or how they analyze it, because this is a good stuff.
Okay. All of these electrical signals that the sense have been reduced to, that transferred back into the olfactory lobe and then to the frontal cortex and then back to the limbic system and then to the outer cortexes, with the hypothalamus. They did CT scan on coyotes, and they provided them with a number of different stimulus. And man, that coyote's brain lit up like a Christmas tree. They what is the olfactory lobe alone is 40 times larger than the humans for comparable size brain. It's like the porpoise. Remember when they kept hearing the hype about how big a porpoise's brain is?
Yeah.
And then later on, you find out that 40% of it is devoted to sonic analysis. Same with the coyote. It has a relatively big brain, but man, you hear different, depending on what you read and who is writing it, you hear different sizes. I've read that the olfactory lobe accounts for 1/8 of the brain size. Another one that I read just not too long ago said it's a full 1/3 of the brain, which seems a little bit large because I've seen pictures of coyote brains and X-rays. And the olfactory lobe is a large chunk of it, for a very specific reason. They have a lot to analyze, and because of that, their subconscious filters out so much of the everything that they do detect. Now, if you think about it, they have this marvelous instrument in the front of their face that can detect scent molecules and parts per trillion. And so everything upwind of them has an odor. It has an aroma, a scent. Everything, every blade of grass, every leaf, everything has an odor. And if they tried to analyze everything, they would never be able to move. So the brain filters out what is called extraneous stimuli or environmental stimuli. That's everything that they're picking up, that they're detecting, that is not a immediate concern for whatever season that they happen to be in right now. I read not long ago, I guess I was talking to someone, obviously it was somebody like you, because they said that the only thing that a coyote pays attention to is anything that it can eat, piss on, or screw. And so that's not entirely true, because their primary concern is survival. So anything that poses a threat to them becomes immediately what's called the attended stimuli. That's what gets all of their attention, the attended stimuli. But they have to filter out the attended stimuli as well, based upon urgency of threat. Now, urgency of threat is determined by the strength of that signal. If the threat is another predator, or if it's a human, snake, whatever, if it's absolutely, the strength is overwhelming, it's like their reaction is like you poke them with a cattle prod.
Okay.
They can smell the very same thing, and if the strength is not very strong at all, then the urgency is not immediate. And so oftentimes they act as if they're just ignoring it. Whether it's a human, like a field worker, you see a coyote moving down one of the access roads in the early morning, goes, within just a few yards of the field workers, or the coyotes out on the golf course. The golfers moving, within just feet of them, because it's we're getting into interpretation perception right now. I'm jumping ahead of myself, but the attendant stimuli, the immediacy of the threat is dependent upon the strength of the signal. Now, the strength of that signal, we can modify, we can influence that. And that's with the scent lock suits, the scent killers, the scent suppressors. You reduce the human scent, even though it's very, very fresh. It's not strong.
Yes.
It's been greatly reduced. They'll be even if you had everything covered in a scent lock, these charcoal suits, and absorb every molecule of scent that your body gives off, you still have to breathe. And just like the polar bear that can detect a seal's breath from 3 miles away, the coyote would pick up on it.
Yeah, that's a big fight that I've had for so many years. And I remember when I got my gig with HS, I called you and I said, "Hey, Rich, I've got a gig with HS, and they sell Scentaway, I think's what it was called." And I'm like, how in the hell am I going to use this stuff without everybody debunking me or throwing me out on the street? And so that's a huge fight. Everybody says, why do I go through the whole process? The coyote's still going to smell my breath, or and I just want to, since we're getting into scent elimination, I just want to throw this out there to everybody, because I know for a fact, okay, it don't matter what company, if the scent suppression suits and wildlife research didn't have some kind of science behind it and it didn't eliminate scent, they can't claim it. You can claim anything to a certain extent, but I promise you there are some companies that have been sued by the industry in the past and had to change their science or change their packaging. So everything is not like this stuff works. Do you agree? I mean, there's a science.
I didn't follow follow that.
Okay, so
a company had to change. They've been sued because
So
whoever bought their product didn't think that it worked.
Well, no, it's kind of like claiming. It's kind of like I explain it this way. It's like these dietary supplements and this new stuff that pops up every 6 months and then it's gone. You can come out with a product and you can put it on the market and you can make all kinds of claims, but when you start making claims that can be proven, you're only going to last so long unless it's proven. Kind of like the reason.
My question though, Steve, is what claims were making that they couldn't prove?
I believe it was with
that they were sued for.
I believe it was a suit company. I don't. Even if I could think of the company's name, I can't. I don't want to say it on the podcast. But there was a certain suit that had a certain material in it, and it was kind of like a charcoal, in a way. And the suit scientifically couldn't do what it said, and it was debunked, and they had to change it. It's kind of like
what they're probably saying then, and I've seen this, and it's obviously false. They say that it eliminates all human scent. Well, that's absolutely impossible. But that doesn't mean that their suit isn't a viable, functional piece of equipment that you can utilize to your benefit.
Yeah.
Because I'm a firm believer in scent suppression.
Yeah.
You suppress that scent and you alter the coyote's reaction to you when they do detect you. And it's a big reaction, and there's a lot of, first of all, let's just get rid of the chaff here and try to we'll discuss the wheat.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a cover scent. Well, they call it cover scent,
Yeah.
but all you're doing is just adding a layer. The coyote will, their brain will filter it out as extraneous stimulus. And they'll just ignore it. You know,
Yes.
whether it's earth or pine or mint or whatever.
I agree.
It's not going to cover anything. You're just adding another layer,
Yeah.
and they can you cannot believe the different layers that they filter out to get to the intended stimulus. Now, trailing dogs, cadaver dogs, especially bomb sniffing dogs, they don't sniff out bombs. They don't sniff out explosives.
Yeah.
What they do is they sniff out a specific single ingredient
Yes.
from there.
Yes.
They ping on one ingredient, and that's the intended stimulus. And then detecting in parts per trillion, they find that one little ingredient. And if you can suppress all of your scent so that it's not it doesn't become a very strong, urgent threat to them, then you'll have time to think with them. If you look at my video again, the very first coyote that comes in, he comes up within 10 feet or so of us and then starts to walk around to where he can get a better odor. You can see him standing there with the nose up and down. And then my little dog, my little Pomeranian that's sitting in my lap, decides to yap at him. And that startles him. He jumps a little bit, but then he comes barreling straight in, and I have to do my grizzly bear impression, roar, and I push him off with the camera tripod. And then he goes down to our left about 10 feet and just stands there and looks at me.
Yep.
And gives me what Jerry Blair called the bad eye, looking at me like, oh, money. And then he walks all the way around us, 10 feet down, looking straight up at us, which is a tribute to good camouflage. And but he's still in there after being on top of us with no sense of urgency.
Yes.
No urgent threat involved. And he walks around to where he gets dead wind, and he sticks his nose over there because he's so close. He sticks his nose out and stretches a little bit, and you can see exactly whenever he catches that human scent because he jerks back a little bit, but it's not an urgent threat to him because it's not very strong at all. It's been suppressed. Plus, on top of it, I use a confusing of what I call a confounding scent. I use mist, and that gives him a lot of other scents that are very, very, very strong, much stronger than mine. And some of them they appeal to a lot of different motivations. And I use 4 different scents in there. One of them is bobcat, another is coyote, and sometimes I even pee in it myself because they will interpret human urine a little differently than they do very close human body odor. Matter of fact, the Texas Wildlife Services agents, those big ranches are so big that sometimes driving across one, they get to a gate. They've been driving for so long that when they get out and open the gate, they just relieve themselves on the gate post. And coyotes come by, they have to hike their leg on it and pee over it. And because I'm convinced that they regard humans as a competitor, an alpha competitor, an apex competitor, but a competitor nonetheless, and that's how they react to humans. But, subsequently, the wildlife services they'd always set a trap there at those gate posts, and they were amongst their most productive sets.
Yep.
And I don't know why we got off on that tangent.
It's my fault.
We're talking about we're talking about scent suppression.
Yes.
I guess that was part of it. As far as scent suppression is concerned, we talked about the coyote at the beginning of the video. There are several coyotes throughout that video. There were no coyotes killed. We just hold them as close as possible and keep it there as long as possible. You see some really good behaviors that if you shoot them at the very first opportunity, you'll never ever see this.
Yeah.
And so it's entertaining to a lot of people. But the alpha bitch that sit there and what was it, 42 minutes stood in front of us protesting our presence, because you could smell us. There were all three of us, but there was so much missing there, and we used the scent suppression.
Yeah.
When I was representing Manaska, I was doing a lot of videoing of coyotes with their heads stuck in the speaker, which is it's good copy for the company, but it shows that it does attract the coyotes. But getting them to stay there with their heads stuck in that speaker, because you've got the entrance trail, you have the ambient scent that's from handling the call. Well, I eliminated all that. And subsequently, the coyotes would just stand there and stick their heads in that speaker, or if I had a motion decoy, they would attack that. Could not work, would not happen without the suppression sense.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in it, and everything I learned from you has allowed me to not convince others, because I don't really try that hard, but people ask me or make fun of me for using it, or even as I get a little flack if even having a scent elimination or scent suppression sponsor. A lot of people say it don't cover it up, or it don't eliminate it, it just covers it up, or it absorbs it. Actually, I've had scent elimination companies that it does eliminate, like silver. If you activate sterling silver with moisture, it releases antimicrobial ions that grab bacteria that causes odor, and yada yada yada. So there's so much going on here. We're 6 minutes from the cutoff, Rich, and I think we're at a good place.
Okay.
We're at a good place right now to stop. We're going to go into next week. We're going to pick right up with scent elimination. We're going to pick right up with processes, and we're just going to go with the flow. How's that, buddy?
Okay, because we're just kind of bumping around the edges of it right here.
Yeah, we need to dive in deep. Not to change the subject, I talked to Todd Borland a while back. He's still making calls, I think. I called him to try to buy his library, his sound library, but so I think I think they're still doing something. I'm really not for sure. Do you remember? Gosh dang it, his name always. You remember Coyote Tech? The heck is that guy's name?
Who?
There was a company that come out called Coyote Tech. I knew I'd forget his name, and I talk to him all the time. But anyway, there's still a few of these companies, floating around that used to try to be players, back in the day. But anyway, that's for another conversation later on. So I guess what I'm going to ask you now, Rich, is here's the thing. Are you still selling DVDs at all?
Oh gosh, no.
Do you have?
Andy at allpredatorcalls.com?
Yeah.
He's the last one that I know of that had any for sale.
Okay.
I get calls every once in a while, and when I give seminars at APC or PVCI, I put up a monitor and I play this video, and Tyler will pause it. Have the members don't hear half of what I say. They're riveted on those coyotes that are so close and loud right in front of us. It's one of the members of APC was computer savvy. I'm totally computer illiterate, and he asked for permission to copy off some for the club, and I told him to help himself. And I'll tell that to anybody. If any of your friends have one, they have my permission to copy it. Give it to you.
Cool. Okay, well maybe we'll try to find. I know a lot of people's asking if you had digital copies, and We'll work on that. Maybe a new edition somewhere. So that'd be pretty fun, I think. Bring back.
Yeah,
back
it
to
would
life.
be because, yeah, actually, I was thinking about being motivated enough to do another DVD, just all contact.
Yeah.
I still want to noodle a coyote. I've had several coyotes jump on me, trampoline on me. Others jump on me and just stand there. And matter of fact, real quick before we go, this how scent suppression works. My brother-in-law wanted to kill a coyote with his bow, and so Tyler and I took him out. Tyler, first stand of the morning, the sun wasn't quite up when we got set up at the stand, and Kevin was off to my left with his bow about 10 yards. Tyler was a little bit behind him with his 22 Hornet, and I was doing the calling with the hand calls. In front, we had the sun on our back, and the wind was right angles to us, and blowing my left ear. And I had the camera on, and I laid it down on my right side with it still running, because I expected coyotes to come out of a dead pile in front of us.
Yeah.
Well, not really a dead pile. There were 3 dead steers out there. And as soon as I started calling, and just as the sun was coming up, it was, oh gosh, Steve, it was one of those beautiful desert mornings where when the sun just peeked up over the horizon, it bathed everything in that yellow neon glow. Everything was glowing yellow. It's just beautiful. And my shadow, I was sitting down in front of a little 2-foot-high desert broom, had my full camo on, net, and I missed as soon as I sat down, missed everything. Then I started calling with AP6, and I hadn't been calling, but I think first series, just a few seconds. And I'm looking at my shadow. It must be 30 feet long. It's extending out there 10 yards at least, maybe even more. And another little shadow comes up right next to it, to the left of it. And it just kept getting longer and longer. And I'm sitting there stupid. It's first thing in the morning. I'm still half asleep. I'm stupidly looking at this shadow that's growing, and I'm not even wondering, just watching the shadow grow next to mine. Yeah. And all of a sudden, I get whacked in the groin. And I look to the left, and a coyote's front feet are in my groin. The face is 6 inches from my face, and you see these intense, fierce, amber eyes. I mean, they're intense, they're fierce, and you can hear the audio, you can hear me go, shit! And you can see those eyes turn from fierce and intense to go, shit! And it drops down, and it bounced about 10 yards or so back the way it come behind us, and stopped and just stood there and looking at us like Jerry Blair says, giving us the bad eye.
That's funny.
Kevin stood up and shot at it, clipped some hair off of his fanny, and that was it, because he was shaking so bad.
I've been there.
But that's fairly. That's what you can expect if you practice scent suppression and mist. Get some confounding scent out there. They don't behave like a normal interaction with the coyote.
Absolutely. Well, man, that was a good hour and a half.
Really that long?
Yeah. We can't. Cow. I mean, we're. I don't know how many weeks. We might. Who knows? But anyway, well, Rich, I appreciate you being on. I will call you next Thursday again, and we'll pick right up where we left off. How about that?
That's a deal. Talk to you then, Steve.
Thanks Rich. I appreciate everything, brother.
Oh, I appreciate you, brother.
All right, man.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, everybody. Heard it from the horse's mouth. We learned a lot about coyotes tonight, and you guys need to be going back and re-watching this. Fast forward it to the parts that's hard to digest. The coyote's anatomy is very hard to digest. I've heard this. I've been in the truck with Rich hunting all day before, more than one day, and I've heard all this in person. I've heard all of this on video, and I'm telling you, there is a lot here to soak up, and some of it may be boring to you guys, some of it may not. But this is all for the greater good. Once you understand this coyote at a level that some of us understand it, then you start putting things in order. And actually, what I really think it is yeah, you can play the wind, you can make great setups, you can have lots of coyotes, and you can be a successful coyote hunter. But when you focus on a coyote like I do, or you focus on a coyote like Rich does, or Scott Hampton, or Randy Shaw that we mentioned earlier, or if you focus on coyotes like some of the ADC guys focus on them, which is eat, breathe, and sleep coyotes, you start respecting them better, which ultimately makes your stands better. Yeah, you don't have to know every little olfactory, whatever them things are. You don't have to know about the horse print gland in their mouth. You don't have to know that 30% of their brain processes this. You don't have to know any of this. But I promise you, if you'll take the time and learn about a coyote, and you take the time to focus on a coyote at this level, you will start eat, breathing, and sleeping coyotes, which equals more freaking dead coyotes. You can't kill coyotes if you don't have coyotes. You can't kill coyotes if you can't get to your coyotes. There's all a process here. And if you up your game, whether you think this is bored or not, it's just like going to school. When you focus on something long enough, you concentrate on something long enough, things get awesome. And that switch will flip, and you'll turn in to a predator hunting badass. Once again, I'm Steve Kreiner, the Dog Soldier. Thanks for watching. Remember, tacticalpredatorhunter.com for all your Dog Soldier approved gear. I want to thank all my sponsors on the show. I want to thank Rich Higgins. I want to thank all you guys for watching and listening. If you don't watch it right here live on YouTube, or if you don't want to watch it live, you can listen to it on iTunes. Peace out, homies. I'll catch you next week.